she hated her boyfriend. She was planning to get even with him in the worst possible ways. But that was a secret, and she wasn't going to let him in on it. She was just going to smile and act like nothing was wrong. Get some alcohol, drink some alcohol, maybe lots of alcohol. And then she was going to just sit back and watch the plans unfold. So, there is this lady here. Her name is Sarah BOONE. Sometimes in July 2020, she decided that she was about to commit murder in the most bizarre way. She was going to give the most ridiculous excuses for doing it, and then she was going to see if she could get away with it. After all, in America, they say anything is possible. So, in 2020, she was in a relationship with this person here, George with a J, and they were living together in this apartment. Sarah appeared like an everyday person, except that she got triggered easily, was quick-witted with her words, and could be a little bit manipulative. Anyways, she was in a relationship with George with a J, a slight man of about 5 feet 2 or 3 inches, weighing just about 103 pounds. So, small man, physically. Now, their relationship was toxic. They both knew that it was, but they both continued to stay in it. And that there is something that I cannot understand about people. Because, in my opinion, if it is toxic, give it a chance to get better. If it doesn't, get out of it before it gets fatal. But not everybody thinks like me. Some people think that I am extreme. Anyways, these guys, they were toxic in a stupid, almost childish way with one another. George with a J had been arrested several times for domestic chop-chop. And in each case, Sarah had gone to bail him out. And she too, in turn, had been arrested for battering by strangulation, only for her to get released again without any proper processing, most likely because George with a J didn't press any charges. Now, maybe all of that is kind of expected because both of them were alcohol abusers. But despite all of the dysfunctionalities of their relationship, on this particular day in February 2020, just before the full-on outbreak of COVID, these two people were having a beautiful day. They had decided to get along, or so it seemed. They went out and played around some, had nice conversations, and then as the evening turned, Sarah brought out a magnum bottle of wine, which is like double the normal size of a wine bottle, and they both laughed as they consumed it. They already had one magnum bottle in the house before that, and with all the laughter and conversation and jesting, they consumed that also. So you can say they were really on the roll. But then they decided to play a game of hide and seek. Like seriously? Now let me make it clear. All of this is according to Sarah's account. But come on, hide and seek? Which two adults play the game of hide and seek, especially within just an apartment? I mean, they were both 40 years old at this time. But okay, I don't judge. So according to the narrative, George climbed into this traveling suitcase and zippered himself up in it, almost all the way up, so as to make sure that he was never found by Sarah. Maybe that way he would win the game. But she discovered him almost immediately. According to her, yep, it was kind of like too easy. So they both laughed about it. And with him still in the box, they talked about how amusing it was that he could fit into the case. And then she got tired and went upstairs to rest on her bed just for a little while. But without knowing it or planning it, she slept off completely, leaving George still in the box. Now, in the morning, somehow, she didn't wake up early. In fact, she eventually got up around about 11 a.m. And when she did, she didn't immediately think of George at all. And it wasn't until about noon that she remembered that she had left him in the box the night previous. And then she hurriedly went downstairs, only to find out that he was still trapped in there. But also that he had become, unfortunately, life deleted. And that story almost made sense. Except that the police noticed how Sarah was so matter-of-fact about the narration of how George with a J had died and how clear-eyed she appeared about everything, and they saw red flags everywhere. But none of that was enough to come to any conclusions with, so they started their normal investigations until they came across a video recorded on Sarah's phone. You see, Sarah had a habit of recording George in some of his most unflattering states. In many of the videos, he appeared completely drunk, slow of speech, intimidated, and controlled, while she appeared dominant, verbally abusive, frustrated, and completely in control. But there were two particular videos that sent shivers down the spine of the watchers. George was clearly trapped in the suitcase, which was now fully zippered up by Sarah. Because how else can a man get trapped in a traveling box unless it was completely zippered up by somebody else on the outside? But he wasn't just cramped up in there chilling out. He was struggling to get free and was pleading for help, including saying over and over again that he couldn't breathe. Now, Sarah was seated leisurely on a chair, maybe a sofa, somewhere not so far behind the point of view of the camera. We know because her legs could clearly be seen in the foreground as she reclined. She was laughing and mocking and taunting him as he earnestly begged. And this continued painfully for the entire duration of the recording. And the video was fairly long. She was saying things like, "That's what you get when you choke me. That's what it feels like. That is what it feels like when you cheat on me." And then she went on and on and on about her grievances. At some point, it was later established that George managed to pry the zipper open a little and was able to get his left hand out of the bag as he started working the zipper back. It looked like he was going to be able to undo it. That was when Sarah approached him with a baseball bat and beat the friggin' daylight out of him, all the while that he was still in the box, until he retracted his hands. And then she fully zippered him up again. And who knows, maybe put a padlock on it after that. She had finally gotten him exactly where she wanted. The pathologist who examined the dead body was shocked at the sight of the bruises that were found all over him, clearly from the beating. But Sarah, ever the manipulator and one to never back down, the moment that she was confronted with the bruises and the clear indication that she actively prevented him from escaping the box, she immediately changed her stance and instantly adopted the battered woman's defense. She said, actually, George had threatened her while he was in the box, and she was afraid for her life. She didn't know what could happen if she let him out of the box, and that was why she left him in there indefinitely. Problem was, nobody believed her. I do not know for sure, and I know that I'm going out on a limb here, but I think there were no hide-and-seek games at all. I think George with a J got drunk, lost his senses, and Sarah, seething with all the anger of times past and the quest for retribution, saw an opportunity and crammed him into that box, then zippered it all up. And because she loved her newfound power of dominance over him so much, she decided to leave him in there for an indefinite period of time. And then maybe she now inadvertently slept off for real. But that doesn't matter. She was sadistic and the guy was life deleted. Period. Anyways, that is just my theory, and it's not based on anything other than my personal reflections and rationalizations of the facts. It could be wrong. So, Sarah went on to trial, and she met all the accusations against her with defiance and arrogance and failed attempts at manipulation. Maybe because that just was her style. At the end, the story of her being afraid for herself was badly hurt when the video of a slowly dying George was played in court. His voice was clearly heard as he pleaded for his life, struggling in the box, while she responded with laughter and mockery.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
You.
Sarah.
Stupid.
Sarah.
That's my name. Don't wear it up.
Sarah. I can't breathe, babe. Seriously.
Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me.
Sarah.
George's life deletion must have been slow and very harrowing, and I guess the jury felt it. It was totally cringe. In October 2024, they handed her a guilty verdict for second-degree murder. After just about 2 hours of deliberation, Sarah Boone was then sentenced to life in prison. And so, folks, that is the story of Sarah Boone and George with a J. Once again, my friends, life is not fair. No! But there is always a lesson to be learned. For me, the lesson here is, if it gets toxic, your relationship that is, try to fix it. If you give it time and it refuses to get fixed, get out of it before it gets fatal. That's for me. If you find any other lessons that can be learned here, please put it there in the comments. We all can use some bit of your wisdom. Take care, guys, and cheers. Subscribe.